Hey everybody, it's Chuck Johnson here. It is Saturday, the 11th of June, and I haven't done one of these podcasts in a while. Forgive me for being busy. A lot of family stuff going on, a lot of travel for work, a lot of working on WeSearchr, WeSearchr.com, the information marketplace, which Pax Dickinson and I have been working on. And of course, I've been breaking news with the Judge Curiel stuff. Been collecting researchers for my research group. You're welcome to join it if you're a good researcher. My email address is editor@gotnews.com, editor@gotnews.com. So, all right, so I have this policy that I try to do something every day for my fans. Sometimes they email me, sometimes they Facebook message me, sometimes they even call me. And a user by the name of Official Jab asked me to do a podcast. And normally I don't just respond to the beck and call of people, but sometimes I do. I mean, what the hell? Why not? I mean, this is supposed to be like a two-way conversation, and I always ask people to kind of join me. And so here I am answering Official Jab's questions. And I should note, sometimes people give me money to answer questions, to research things, and I think Official Jab sent me like $50, maybe $25, somewhere in there. And so anyway, so what the hell? I'll be a cam girl. Not as attractive, I suppose, as some others. By the way, I've heard some conservative female journalists, not naming names, but I've heard some of them act as cam girls on the side to pay for their journalism habit. Not naming names, not naming names, not naming names. But we're at the stage now where I guess a lot of journalism is going to be following the porn industry, and you're going to have like wish lists or things like that, and people can go and give you things, give me dats, I guess, in a certain sense. And it'll be interesting to see kind of how it develops. I mean, I've always been of the view that porn is like a leading indicator of the future of the content industry. It's sort of like at the bleeding edge. First there's porn, then there's news, and then eventually it gets all the way down to like movies and things like that, things that are high cost production. And so anyway, so here I am, summoned by Official Jab. And Official Jab has some interesting questions. I'll just take them in turn, because I think that's easier to deal with. And then I'll go and have a late dinner with my wife. Okay, here's the first one. Trump, including the violent rioters that harass his supporters, also... these are the things he wants me to talk about. He says, Trump, including the violent rioters that harass his supporters, also Trump versus globalism, Trump and the Trump playing cards. Don't forget your hat. Oh, my hat's in the car. Fuck. Do you think he's racist, sexist, etc., or is this all just stupid virtue signaling without any merit? Did you hear Sam Harris railing against Trump on the Joe Rogan show? Didn't hear Sam Harris on the Joe Rogan show. I don't know what to make of Sam Harris, frankly. On the one hand, he's very good on atheism questions and going after Muslims, which he doesn't have to do. Most atheists, professional atheists, go after Christians all the time, which I find kind of just boring, or go after Mormons, which I find even more boring because the Mormons are so nice. But it's a good question. What do I make of all this antipathy to Trump? Well, I find it kind of weird because for years Trump has always been like this guy that everybody liked. He's in Home Alone 2, for Christ's sakes. He's got a cameo appearance in that. He's been in people's living rooms for like 30 years. I find that kind of interesting. I find this new attempt to otherize a guy who we've all sort of had opinions on over the years to be quite interesting, all the tribalism of the politics. Now, I happen to think that Trump's rise is an indication of globalism's decline, or at least it's that we've hit peak globalism, which I think I'd probably date around 2010, 2009, somewhere in there, right after Barack Obama got elected. And my general sense is that Trump is a sign of things to come, that he's basically the return of alpha males into politics. Now, in increasing economies, growing economies, alphas go into business because that's where they can maximize their power, they can grow their networks. But in declining economies, people hunker down, they become more tribal, they care about the 150 Dunbar principle. People, in their lives, the 150 people in their lives. And so when that happens, I think the alphas go into politics, and I think that explains the rise of this Filipino president, Duarte, who's allowing citizens to just go and kill, drug dealers, which I find awesome. I hope that happens here in the United States. Suspect it won't, though. And you see it in the rise of Putin. Putin, of course, is famous for allegedly killing journalists, which, I don't think, given the 6% approval rating of most journalists, I don't think most people would be opposed to. Now, I know that sounds crass, but it certainly seems a possibility. Remember, in declining orders, a lot of questions that were previously unthinkable get asked. And so that's where people like me, people who are creative journalists, people who are one-of-a-kind journalists, this is where people like us take our cues. Now, I don't really like words that are like racist or sexist. Is Trump a racist or a sexist? Who knows? Who knows what's in somebody's heart? I mean, really, who knows? I also don't really like the word racist. I mean, whenever somebody gives me an ist statement, they're really just reflecting the taboos of their time. Things used to be, oh, that's communist, right? Or that's fascist, or that's, that's anti-Semitic. I guess that's not an ist statement. Or Islamist. I mean, there's always this ist thing that's trying to group a whole group, a whole ideology, a whole group of people. And they're usually used as this way of attacking things. So, or denigrating people who are thinking ideas that are not appropriate. So papist, right, is anti-Catholic prejudice. Socialist, that's sort of like a pejorative that was thrown around, but now increasingly seems like a positive. As for me, whenever somebody calls somebody a racist, I usually find that as a way as ending an argument rather than opening one up. I've been called a racist many times. I've been called a white supremacist, which is kind of odd given my choice of color of mate and love, and of course in my personal associations. But of course these are things that are designed to end conversations. And so really, whenever somebody calls somebody a racist or a sexist, generally it means that they have some interesting ideas. So I kind of use it as a tell to go and see oh, this person's being politically incorrect. They're thinking through issues that would otherwise not be discussed. Racist basically means anti-leftist, or it's basically a code word for anti-white. It's a long-standing tradition of smearing whites who are speaking up for themselves as racists. And if you go and you read some Derek Bell, who's the guy who taught Barack Obama, there's this whole idea of critical race theory, this idea that racial minorities can't be racist because they don't have power, and so therefore they're not racist. Well, if people can get you fired from your job, for supposedly saying racist things, then those people have power. I think it's pretty obvious in this day and age that white males do not have as much power as they once did, that much of our media is anti-white. I mean, you could see it all the time. It's quite revealing, quite disturbing in a way. And every regime sort of has its Jew or its Cossack or its group that it's acceptable to discriminate against. And I fear that's increasingly becoming the case with white males, particularly young white males. And of course, I'm against that. So to the extent that Trump is called a racist, I don't think it actually hurts him anymore. I think it's one of those things that actually unites people. Now, about the violent rioters. So we have been collecting stories at GotNews about the various people who were harassed and attacked during San Jose. And I've been in touch with some attorneys. If you're an attorney or know an attorney who wants to help on this case, we plan on bringing an action against the city of San Jose and against the mayor in particular for essentially having a stand-down order, and not having the police protect people going to a San Jose event for Trump. And I've got to say, watching those images of men running for their lives and getting the shit kicked out of them, or hearing stories from pregnant women about how they were afraid of losing their baby because they're afraid of being assaulted. Man, that's fucked up. It's fucked up in America. And I'm against that. That's why I own guns. That's why I intend to use them and God, I hope this is just an if the occasion calls for it. My sense too is that in the last few days, I guess it's the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal has essentially said that there's no right to concealed carry in California. So San Jose tells us the police don't have a duty to protect us, but we also can't have concealed carry weapons to protect ourselves. So it's essentially open season on those of us who don't believe the current regime of California's policies. And that's wrong. Nobody wants to talk about how the Mexican government is funding these protests. Nobody wants to talk about how the chief of police is allied with anti-white groups like La Raza. Nobody wants to talk about the long history of the mayor, Sam Liccardo's anti-white activism, pro-illegal activism. And this is a really disturbing trend. I don't know what to do about it, other than to fight back with arguments, and failing that, to fight back with weapons if necessary. And I hope that doesn't come to it. But everyone hopes that civil war doesn't happen until it actually happens, and then they hope not to lose it. And so I'm in that category. Now, there are a few other questions. Hillary versus Bernie and what might happen at the convention. Also, if she would pick Bernie as her running mate, and if she goes away, will they slip Biden in? Well, I happen to think Hillary Clinton will not be charged with a felony. Now, I know that there's a lot of felonious behavior that she's done. I know that lots of people are leaking more material. I know all this. This is all not news to me. I mean, I get briefings from my FBI friends. I get briefings from lots of people. And I'll tell you that, yes, she should go to jail. No, she won't go to jail because the people who have to sign off on it include people like Loretta Lynch, who has a long history of anti-white, anti-Republican, anti-Jewish prejudice. And that's just, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. I mean, we've done a lot of research on Loretta Lynch. You can see some of it for yourself. And so my suspicion is that the FBI is going to continue leaking stuff. My suspicion is that this will continue to damage her. There'll be new reveals. But it'll be much like Benghazi. She won't actually do any time, even though she deserves it. She won't actually, the scandal will continue. And to a certain extent, like the Fox News-based media has no incentive to actually go. And they have no incentive to actually go and actually stop some of these scandals, to actually go and get convictions. Because if they get convictions, like what the hell do they talk about all the time? I mean, Hillary's email is great for business. And so you should ask yourself why it is that a lot of these media properties that are subsidized by advertisers, why that kind of continues. Let's see here. I think Hillary Clinton is the nominee of the Democratic Party. I think Bernie has no incentive to step down as far as I see it. I mean, he should continue indefinitely. I mean, worst case scenario, he just gets a lot of attention for his ideas. He gets some of those ideas on the platform. He becomes the Goldwater, 64 to the Democratic Party. So I think there's no problem with it. I don't really have an issue with Bernie running. I actually happen to agree with Bernie Sanders on some of the issues. I do think the college debt problem is a huge one and a serious one, and so one that we should rectify. I don't agree with Bernie Sanders on the need to make college free, or on, I just think that's a stupid idea. I don't think people should be going to college. I think this is a stupid idea to encourage people to go to college. I mean, Milo Yiannopoulos' privilege grants, I think, is a stupid idea. I mean, I'm sorry, but I do. I don't. If you're high IQ, you shouldn't go to college. You should go get some skills. I'll train you. I mean, fuck, if you want to be a volunteer, I'll give you an apprenticeship if you have a high enough IQ. And I think you should go and do things that are interesting with your early teens, or your late teens, early 20s. And you should do things that make you unique, that make you one of a kind, so that you can charge monopoly rents for your skills. I don't think Joe Biden will get slipped in, because I think he has serious health problems. I also think Hillary Clinton has serious health problems. Now, third question, he wants me to talk about Facebook and Twitter and how I'm doing with them. Well, I've been shorting I've been shorting Twitter for the last few months, and my bank balance continues to increase. So, thanks Twitter for kicking me off. Apparently, this guy Leslie Minley, he was like the black guy who was like going to get fired from Twitter, and then he rage quit over it, and now he's like director of engineering at Slack. Which, by the way, if Slack ever became a publicly traded company, you should short the shit out of, because apparently it's not very secure, and apparently it's hired a bunch of black engineers, which is usually a tell that a company's not doing that well. I think you want to basically be short Facebook and Twitter long run, because I think that, as I lay out in my piece, it's the end of Facebook, and I feel fine. I think that peak globalization is going to be bad for social networks. That we've hit peak saturation in the United States with Facebook. Facebook continues to ban us. So it uses algorithms to target everyday users. but he uses real people, all of whom are liberal Democrats, to control what news we see, what's the trending feature. And I don't think they can preserve their immunity under the safe harbor provision, I guess it's CDA 230. I don't think they can do that. I think they're going to be regulated at some point, and I hope the U.S. Senate Finance Committee particularly goes and does that. I hope that's, yeah, I think basically, short version of this is I think that almost all of the companies that were tech companies that were formed during Obama's years or grew to prominence during Obama's years are shorts once Trump gets into the presidency, or even Hillary Clinton for that matter, because the number of relationships between Google and Google, Facebook, Twitter, and the administration are legion. And so when those relationships are no longer valuable, when the regulatory body is no longer staffed by people who support Facebook, Twitter, Google, etc., when that happens, I think the companies will not be as valuable, and I think you'll see like a 20 to 30% market correction. And that's why I continue to be short those companies in my personal portfolio. I think Netflix is a short because I think the idea that everyone in the world is going to consume Orange is the New Black in the same way that Americans do, I think that's total bullshit. And I would love, 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 love to see the Netflix numbers, because I don't think nearly as many people will watch the new content as people say. I think it's just a lie. I think Steven Crowder should sue them. Given what was revealed in that Gizmodo article. I think he won't, because he's basically a signaling libertarian, conservative type, and I think he does have a leg to stand on, but he won't do it because a lot of conservatives or conservatives don't want to actually fight. So hence the reason I exist, or Mike Cernovich, or a bunch of others. Yeah, I feel it's kind of pathetic. In all honesty, they all want to talk a good game. We all want to bitch. We want to write our articles. Blah 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 blah. All right, when are you fuckers going to sue somebody? When are you going to actually do something? When are you going to actually stand up for yourselves? And of course, I'm not interested in people who don't stand up for themselves. I'm just not. I mean, I think most people who are victims of things and don't fight back deserve to be. I mean, that's basically my read on it. I like Steven. I've spoken on the phone a few times, but I don't really think that highly of Steven. I think his comedy is kind of a little dated. I think it's just how do I put this? I hope Steven continues to grow as a comic, but I don't really care about some of his politics. I think that basically all of this right versus left tribe stuff was really just a function from 1945 to 2008, when growth was big in the United States. And then now that growth is declining, it's no longer a question of conservative versus liberal. It's now a question of nationalist versus globalist. It's now a question of the nation state versus this cosmopolitan bullshit. And so I just don't find Steven's stuff all that interesting. I mean, I'm watching his stuff right now, and it's social justice warrior Canada, you make me ashamed to be Canadian. Okay, whatever. It's all this it's all this signaling libertarianism, and it's just boring to me. I'm bored by it. And so I wish him the best, but I don't know. It's a little absurd. It's a little absurd. And this is a guy who, does the whole Democrats are the real racist thing. And I'm just tired of that shit. If I'm going to be honest with you, I'm just tired of that shit. And he's a good guy. He's had some good people on his show. He's never invited me on his show, which is whatever. He's close to Dana Lash, who's a fraud. And he's close to a lot of people who are fraudulent in the conservative movement, who want to basically just take your money. And I don't want to take your money. I want to free you while taking your money. But, using that money for good things, to try and make the world a different place, to actually put some skin in the game, to risk things. I'm just not interested in people who, create clickbait and pretend that it's freedom. Just not. Not interested. Now I hope he sues the shit out of Facebook. I bet he won't. I'll take any bets. People want to take the other side of it. And the worst case scenario is maybe I'll persuade him to actually be courageous. Who knows? WeSearchr, thank you so much for asking. Thank you. WeSearchr, how is it going after just kicking off? And do you have any advice for people who don't know anything about research and getting info that's not easily accessible? How could I find out if Justin Trudeau is gay, for example? That's an odd one. That is an odd one. I didn't come up with it. This woman, Judgy Bitch, I guess is her handle. She's come up with it. There are all these rumors that Justin Trudeau is gay. We don't really care if he's gay. We just want it out. Let people know if he's had sex scandals, whatever. We have a bounty. I think it only has that $100 or something. It might have more. You should donate to it. If you're Canadian. I like Canada. May go there in August, by the way, if anyone's up in Canada. Looking forward to seeing you guys. I used to spend a lot of my childhood in Prince Edward Island and Québec. Oui, je parle français. Et depuis l'âge de 5 ans, je faisais partie d'un programme du gouvernement français. Français. It's been a while since I've spoken French. I speak more Spanish these days living in California. But anywho, yeah, look, so here's the way it works. WeSearchr is this really big idea. People don't really understand how big this idea is yet because we haven't really laid out our vision for it, but it's coming. Short version of a long story is we believe that the future for the media is to deprive them of access to information. And the way to do that is to create new sources of forcing that information out. And so the way to do that is to basically build technology that forces journalists to cover stories that wouldn't otherwise be covered. So some of the ideas that we have coming forward, we're going to have a bounty system for solving crimes. We're going to have a bounty system for asking questions of famous people, where people can put money behind certain questions in real time. Some of the famous people can go and claim that money, so that it's a valuable use of those famous people's time. I mean, how much money? I'd probably spend like $600 to ask Hulk Hogan a question that he would answer. I'm sure other people feel the same way. And so I think that the big idea here is replacing the page view, the ad-supported page view, with the dollar as an indication of giving a fuck. Because everyone spends all this time lecturing us about traffic, right? It's traffic that matters. Traffic, traffic, traffic. And of course, all these traffic numbers are ridiculously overstated. There's a list of all these companies that a friend of mine sent recently, of all these we have 10 million, we have 20 million, we have 40 million, blah, 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 blah. Now, look, we do okay at GotNews, but I'm not interested in traffic. I'm interested in influence and power. I'm interested in money. I'm interested in things that are quantifiable. And I don't really care that much about traffic, because if you have a shitload of traffic and it melts down your servers and you have to hire all these people, and you can't actually make any money, what's the point of the business? If the point of the business is basically just to take a rich billionaire's money and pretend that you're running a news company, well, okay, fine. But I'm not interested in that. I'm actually interested in building a community of people who support my work. This is just what I believe. Now, I have some tips over at GotNews. I'm trying to remember what exactly the URL is. Hold on, let me pull it up. I have some tips, tips and tools, and this goes into some of my theories on research. It's a pretty interesting section. I highly recommend it to you, and I think it will be very interesting. And of course, there's a Social Matter article about WeSearchr written by Mark Ure that I also highly recommend you guys read. I'll put it up in the comments section. It's called WeSearchr and the Coming Information Wars. All right, so let me just give you a slight preview of the future, because why the fuck not, right? Why the fuck not? This is kind of an exciting time. We've got a bounty up at WeSearchr right now, and I think it'll be very interesting. I think it's a very interesting time to be alive. And the big idea that I have is, if we're in a declining economy, so let's assume that we are, just for the sake of argument, capital control seems extremely likely. Now, what is a capital control? A capital control, and I'm just looking up the definition of this, but it's basically residency-based measures such as transaction taxes or other outright prohibitions that a nation's government can use to regulate the flow of capital markets into and out of a country's capital account. So basically, it's a way to keep money from flowing across borders. Now, if you're China, and shit is going crazy there right now, so much so that some of us believe that an actual cultural revolution is taking place right now, that a lot of people are disappearing, and if you're China and that shit's going on, then what you do is you take some of your money and you try and get the fuck out. And that's what's happening with San Marino, San Gabriel Valley. It's what's happening with Hong Kong. Money going to Vancouver, which is apparently there's like a huge housing bubble there that's going on. And basically, that's why so much of our cities are so unaffordable. That's the larger narrative of what's happening. Now, I happen to believe that all of this stuff is very, very good news for the future. I happen to believe that this is all going to be very exciting, because what it's going to do is it's going to lead to more adoption of alternatives to current fiat money. And I suspect some of it will be gold. I'm not against the gold bugs. I suspect some of it will be guns. Like, I think gun sales will continue to go through the roof. I think some of it will be in canned goods, because food shortages may seem likely. And with capital controls, what will happen is people will try and figure out ways around those capital controls. And one of the ways they'll do that is through Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin is extremely interesting. Bitcoin spiked above $600. It's on 2-year highs. This is, it is crazy how much money is going into Bitcoin. And there are all these articles. Does Bitcoin pose a threat to China's economic security? You bet it does. So here's what's going on, okay? What's going on right now is all this money is flowing into Bitcoin. And the reason it's happening is that there's the oh shit money trying to get out of China. Because people need to get out of China. They need to get out of it because the economy is collapsing, because it's fake. And you'll start to see this with like the Wanda Group. You'll start to see this with a lot of different organizations in China that will they'll let you know that the numbers are fake, that everything in this communist country's numbers are fake. And so everyone who has money is trying to get it the fuck out. And the way to do that is with Bitcoin. Much in the same way that like art was a store of value for Jews trying to go across borders in Nazi Germany. And why is this important? Well, what's happening is that the value of Bitcoin is, basically if there's $9 billion in Bitcoin right now, the market cap of Bitcoin is $9 billion. This is from January 2009, I guess was when they first did Bitcoin, to now, which means that like in a 6-year, 7-year period, Bitcoin went from nothing to $9 billion. Now, if I'm correct, all right, so $9 billion, that's roughly the GDP of Costa Rica, I want to say it is. Now, if I'm correct on the math, what's going to happen next is there are going to be other countries that are going to start to put their GDP into, basically, there are going to be other countries that are going to have capital controls. And with those capital controls, you're going to see more and more regimes. Basically what's going to happen is you're going to see more and more people buying Bitcoin, which is going to lead to a spike in the price of Bitcoin. And what's going to happen is, my bet is that it will be basically $1 trillion. That's kind of my sense on like where it's going to be by. It's probably going to be around 1 trillion by probably 2020 at the latest. And if it's $1 trillion, that means that it's roughly, Bitcoin as an economy would be roughly the size of, I don't know, the GDP of like Germany, I think somewhere in there. Yeah, like Germany, or maybe Japan. So it's going to be quite large. And when it's that large, all kinds of interesting things are going to happen, because people are going to have money on Bitcoin. They're not necessarily going to want to convert that money out of Bitcoin. They're going to want to buy things. They're going to want to buy information. And who owns an information marketplace? That's right, this guy. So when that happens, I think the world is going to be a very interesting place. And I suspect it will be sooner maybe than 5 years. I think it will be probably in the next 2 or 3. And when that happens, I think the power of central banks to essentially inflate currency ad infinitum is going to disappear. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a very interesting future. It's going to mean much more power in the hands of the individual for good or ill. It's going to be much less power in the hands of governments, corporations, that kind of thing. Mostly for good, in my view. And so you'll see a lot of journalists, you'll see a lot of people who have very strong personal brands. And I think that's essentially the future. Now, there's more shit here, there's more stuff we could talk about, but I think that gives you some sense of where we're going. Now, this podcast has gone on, I guess it's gone on for 30 minutes. I try not to make these things too long. And of course, like I'm sitting here and my camera's all fucked up, so you basically just got to see my head. I hope it was a nice head. But anywho, this is what I've been thinking about. These are the ideas that I've been percolating on. We've got so much more planned for WeSearchr. I mean, we've had a bunch of people reach out to us about it. We've had people. I mean, we funded a bounty about Nick Denton. We funded a bounty about Jackie Coakley. I mean, there's just so much shit that's going to happen soon. I'm so excited to tell you about it. I mean, there's just so much stuff, and it's going to be interesting. Now, I don't know what I should do about Facebook or Twitter yet. I haven't decided. I just got back from a Facebook ban, and it's going to be a little fun. Currently being sued by GotNews as part of their, going bankrupt thing, and that's exciting. I can't really yet talk about all the stuff I want to talk about with GotNews. Not because I don't. It's just. I want to talk about how fucked up it is that all these people are defending revenge porn. I want to talk about so much other stuff with Denton, but I have something very awesome planned for the bankruptcy hearing next week, and I don't want to spoil the surprise. So you'll have to bear with me just a little bit longer, little bit longer. With that, my email address is editor@gotnews.com. I'm adding more people to my research group. If you have a high IQ, if you support the alt-right, if you believe crazy shit that no one else believes, but nonetheless probably is true, hit me up, write me, talk to me. I want to hear from you. Friend me on Facebook, email me, editor@GotNews, Charles@WeSearchr.com, WeSearchr, WE, search SEARCHR.com. And yeah, this is going to be a really fun next half of the year for me. And for you, because I aim to please. So yeah, with that, I'll close out and happy to take more questions. And if you guys want me to do more podcasts, and you have questions you want to ask me, gotnews.com/donate. I'm happy to answer questions. I would speak all day if people gave me money, frankly. But the issue is I have other projects that pay me more money, and so it's a better, efficient use of time. But you can change that. You can gotnews.com/donate. You can send me more money. I'm happy to answer more questions if I'm allowed to. If I don't want to get me in trouble. Maybe you do want to get me in trouble. Maybe I don't want to get in trouble. With that, let's chat soon. Bye.